our criminal justice system into the direction of the 21st century.
The public should be outraged by this.
We need to use science and data in order to address public safety of violent crime.
His data and science is completely flawed.
Nobody's safe in Los Angeles because of District Attorney Gascón.
We are very, very concerned about his policies.
You will see that not only have I enhanced public safety,
I am absolutely outraged at the lies that Mr. Gascón is spewing.
He has no business implementing laws of his own personal choice, which we voted against.
We've done so in a way that is much more both physically and socially responsible.
Not only is he breaking the law, but he is not doing what he is supposed to do as a district attorney, and that is protect his victims.
Gascón is an advocate for the criminals.
I truly believe that he is in the wrong office. He should have been a public defender.
He's voted in, it can be voted out.
Salute. Celebrating us going home on this Gascón direct.
Crime is at a historic low in this nation, is at historic lows in the state.
That's a bunch of baloney to me.
And now, for an update on the recall of L.A. County District Attorney George Gascón, here's John and Ken.
John Cobell, Ken Shampoo, KFI AM 640, live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Last week we had Eric Siddall on, and he's the vice president of the Association of L.A. County Deputy District Attorneys. He came on to say that the organization invited George Gascón to a virtual town hall event where Gascón could be questioned by the deputies over his policies. And they could air out their differences, and then the deputies would decide on a vote whether to support the recall or not. Well, Gascón has refused to come.
Yeah, it was going to be a virtual town hall style event, so he wouldn't get necessarily booed or jeered in person. He would be able to remain safe on the screen, but he has turned it down. So now what? We bring Eric back to the show to talk about all this.
Eric, thank you for returning here.
Well, thank you for having me back and having back so soon.
Not surprising?
I mean, look, I don't think we should be surprised about this. This is what he did when he was DA of San Francisco. It's probably one of the reasons why he left San Francisco. He does not know how to answer questions. So I guess, am I surprised? No. Am I disappointed? Yes. Should any competent or even semi-competent elected official be able to answer the questions that we were going to ask? I think that, that's probably one of the prerequisites of being an elected official in the United States, is that you're able to answer questions about your policy. So the question is, why is he so afraid to come before his own employees and ask or answer the questions that we were going to ask?
He doesn't really explain or defend any of his policies for the last year. He rarely speaks out other than to claim this will lead to crime going down. But outside of a generic statement like that, there is no discussion with him.
No, and it's really a shame. I mean, the man goes on to these scripted formats and says, I have an open door policy. Well, what's the point of an open door policy when there's no one behind the door? I mean, the man doesn't even show up to the office. So why would we expect him to be able to answer the questions from his district attorneys? He's never entered a courtroom to represent the people on any case. Why would we expect him to answer these types of questions from his district attorneys?
If you could ask him 2 or 3 questions, or maybe what do you think the most common questions that your association would be asking him if they could meet? What's on top of their list or on top of your list?
I'll tell you what's on top of my list. He promised when he came into office that he would make us safer, that he would make our community safer. And my question to him would be, how has his policy or his policies, how has that made us safer? I mean, we are now experiencing record high homicides throughout Los Angeles County. How has his policy of refusing to use every toolbox that the legislature and the people of the state of California have given us as prosecutors, how has his forfeiture of his duties, his responsibilities, how has that made us safer?
What would be another one that's you think crucial?
My other major question is, how does he justify violating the county charter? He brought in a bunch of public defenders to represent him in the office. The county charter clearly says that you can't do that. How does he justify that? How does he justify this level of secrecy throughout the entire office? His refusal to honor Public Records Act requests. How does he justify not using the gang allegation? How does he justify not putting people who are felons with firearms in custody, endangering our most vulnerable communities? How is it that places like Florence Firestone have had a 300% increase in homicides over the past 2 years, and he has done nothing to try to improve that situation? What type of metrics is he using to justify this social experiment that he is having all of us as residents of Los Angeles County engage in? Those are some of the basic questions I would ask.
You know what's weird is many people on his side are always carrying on about how the large supply of guns is one of the main drivers of crime. I mean, that's constantly being debated. And yet he will not prosecute with gun enhancements. That's strange.
It's 100% a contradiction, right? It seems only that they're interested in kind of limiting legal gun ownership. I mean, if you are a felon with a firearm, there is no reason why you should remain out of custody. There is no reason why you should be allowed to continue to be out and loose in society. And if what we have seen over the past 6 months especially is that these felons with firearms are released and then they commit a follow-home robbery or they commit murder. So that's what he has to justify. You know, the other thing that I think that some of your listeners would probably be interested in is, so he refuses to meet with the prosecutors that work in his office, but he had no problem meeting with the public defenders in a similar town hall meeting when he was running for office. And what's even more bizarre, and we got this actually from a PRA that we had to do, a Public Records Act request that we did through the Public Defender's Office, because God forbid the DA's office have any transparency. So we got these documents from the Public Defender's Office, and they were feeding him questions. One woman, Elisa Blair, who has now been that Gascón hired into the DA's office, was communicating with a member of Gascón's campaign team, Anna Kozma, who is now his confidential assistant in the district attorney's office, and they were basically feeding questions. Maybe that's the reason why he didn't come, is because we weren't going to feed him the questions we were going to ask him, and he would have to actually think on his feet.
Now your organization is going to go ahead and vote on whether or not to support the recall? Is that what's going to happen next here?
Right. We're going to give our members a set number of days. There's going to be a vote. It's going to be confidential. One of the reasons why we want to make sure it's confidential is because the secret ballot is key to any democratic good government policy. So we'll have that vote. I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to make a secret about how I'm voting. I am voting to endorse this recall. I don't think this recall is imperative to happen right at this point. We have a man who has no faith in or has violated his oath of office. He refuses to hold criminals accountable. He refuses to enforce quality of life crimes. He refuses to honor our county's governing document. And he now refuses to answer questions from subject matter experts that are in his own office about his own policies. So I think it's very clear this recall needs to happen. It is imperative, and I'm planning on voting to endorse this recall.
One last question, Eric. Has there been turnover in the DA's office employment since he's taken over?
Yeah, we've actually lost a fair. We've one of the things that is always great about the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, and one of the reasons why DA's offices from around the state and around the country, ask us for our opinions on how to do things, is because we have a deep bench of very committed prosecutors. Unfortunately, we have started to see some of them leave because they don't want to work for this man anymore.
All right. We appreciate talking to you again. Keep us posted on the vote.
Yeah, thank you. And, come on again once the vote happens.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
All right.
It's Eric Siddall, Vice President of the L.A. County Association of Deputy DAs. George Gascón has turned down their invitation to come before them and talk about his policies and how it's affected criminal justice. And they're going to vote soon, probably, on whether or not to support the recall effort. More coming up.
John and Ken, KFI.